There comes a moment in every person's life, often quiet and unexpected, when we finally begin to understand that wisdom isn't something you read in books or hear in speeches. It's something that accumulates slowly, painfully, beautifully, through living, through loss, through waiting, through trying and failing and trying again, and it is in the voices of older people, those who have lived through wars and weddings, through births and goodbyes, through silence and storms, that you find the kind of truth that can't be rushed or faked or sold in a course. It is the kind of truth that humbles you, that stops you, that makes you question everything you thought you knew about what matters in this life, because when they speak, they don't offer information, they offer clarity, the kind of clarity that only comes after a lifetime of watching people chase things that never made them happy, after watching love win and pride destroy, after seeing how quickly time vanishes when you think you have plenty. And so when they tell you, don't waste your energy trying to be liked by everyone, it hits different because they've lived long enough to know that the people who truly matter will love you for who you are, not who you pretend to be. And when they say, slow down, this moment right here is your life, it isn't a cliché, it's a reminder carved into their bones by decades of mornings they once rushed through and now miss. And when they smile gently and say, nothing you own will go with you, only what you give, it's not philosophy, it's truth spoken by someone who has let go of both wealth and ego and has learned that the hands that give are always fuller than the hands that grasp. And as you listen, really listen, something inside you shifts, because suddenly the noise of the world, the deadlines, the judgments, the comparisons, the fear, starts to fall away, and you begin to see life more like they do, as a precious, fleeting opportunity to become not just successful, but kind, not just important but gentle, not just right but forgiving. And they teach you that love is the only thing that grows when you give it away, that time is the only currency you never get back, and that regrets are the things you didn't do more than the things you did. And as these truths begin to settle in your heart, you realize that wisdom doesn't shout, it whispers, and it waits for you to be ready. And old people, whether they are grandparents or quiet neighbors or strangers with soft eyes, carry the kind of grace that only comes from having faced life in all its colors, from having cried in silence and laughed with abandon, from having held hands that they had to let go of. And so their advice is not for applause, it's for awakening. And the first life lesson that hits you the hardest is this: most of what you worry about will not matter in the end, and if you can learn to let go of the need to control, to predict, to be perfect, you will be freer than most people ever are, because control is an illusion and perfection is a prison, and what matters more is presence. Being here now, listening, feeling, forgiving, learning to be okay even when nothing is okay. And when they tell you this, they do it not from a place of theory but from experience, because they have sat in hospital rooms and graveyards and empty houses and still found a reason to smile, to hope, to go on. And they will tell you that the second great lesson is this: kindness costs nothing but means everything, and no one remembers your resume when you're gone, but they will remember how you made them feel. And in the quiet of your life, when all the noise fades, it will be the people you lifted, the moments you were generous, the times you forgave when it was hard, that will echo in the hearts of those who follow. And this kind of legacy cannot be measured in bank accounts, only in hearts touched. And so the elderly will tell you, often with eyes that have seen both joy and sorrow, that if you want to live a good life, start by being good to others, even when they don't deserve it, even when you are tired, even when no one sees it, because that is the mark of true character. Not how you behave when it's easy, but how you love when it's hard. And they will tell you the third truth, the one that changes everything. You are going to die, and once you truly accept that, not fearfully but honestly, life becomes more beautiful, not because you're obsessed with death, but because you finally start living fully, appreciating the smell of rain, the sound of your mother's voice, the way the sun feels on your skin, the fact that you have breath in your lungs and a chance to do something with it today. And you begin to understand that every moment matters, every person matters, every goodbye could be the last. And so you begin to speak with more softness, hug with more intention, forgive faster, love louder. And suddenly the small stuff doesn't matter anymore. Not the gossip, not the grudges, not the things you can't take with you. And you begin to live not for someday but for now, not for impressing others but for honoring your soul. And it changes you, because once you learn these life lessons from people who have lived through it all, you can't go back to shallow living, to rushed mornings and fake smiles, to empty striving and fearful hiding. You wake up, you rise, and you begin to build a life not of achievement, but of depth, not of approval but of truth. And this life, this kind of life, is what you were made for all along. Because the truth is, no matter how many distractions we fill our days with, social media, shallow goals, the endless noise of comparison, none of it ever satisfies the soul the way wisdom does, the kind of deep, lived truth that radiates from the eyes of someone who's seen more sunrises than you can count, who's loved deeply and lost deeply and still manages to show up each morning with dignity and grace, because they've learned something the hard way, something most people overlook until it's too late. that life is not made up of the big moments we chase but the small ones we ignore, and so when they speak about life they speak about silence, about sitting under the shade of an old tree with nothing but time and breath, and how that moment contains more joy than any trophy or title ever could, and they will tell you that if you want to be truly rich, don't count your money, count your peace, count your sleep, count the people who check on you when you go quiet, count the mornings you wake up without regret, because the greatest success is inner peace, and they've seen too many people chase things that sparkle and burn out while missing the things that glow softly and last forever, and so they will gently tell you that you should never trade your integrity for anything. Not money, not power, not applause, because once you lose it, you lose yourself, and when you're alone with your thoughts at the end of your life, it won't be your bank balance or popularity that comforts you. It will be the simple knowledge that you were good to people, that you tried your best, that you lived honestly and loved fully, and they'll tell you that the people who make it far in life aren't always the loudest or the most talented. They're the ones who kept going when it got hard, who chose kindness when they could have chosen bitterness, who stayed soft in a world that tries to harden everyone, and that is one of the most difficult, most beautiful lessons you will ever learn. To stay soft, to not let pain turn you cold, to not let betrayal make you bitter, because the world needs more warmth, more gentleness, more people who are willing to say, I forgive you, and mean it, who are willing to say, I was wrong, and change, who are willing to love again even after loss. And the older generation knows this in their bones because they've lived through the heartbreak, through the silence, through the waiting, and they will tell you that one of the most powerful things you can ever learn is this: you can begin again no matter what has happened, no matter who left, no matter how long you stayed stuck. Life always allows you to begin again if you're brave enough to try, and the moment you realize that, you stop fearing failure, you stop fearing change, and you start trusting in the quiet power of persistence. And they will remind you that mistakes are not the end of you, they are part of you, they are teachers in disguise, and the shame you carry for what you did not know before is only heavy because you haven't forgiven yourself yet. And once you do, once you say to yourself, I did the best I could with what I knew, everything changes, because then your life stops being a performance and starts becoming a process, a beautiful, imperfect unfolding of who you were always meant to be, and that, they will tell you, is the true goal, not perfection but authenticity. Not being better than others but being better than you were yesterday, and in that space you stop comparing and start creating, you stop judging and start growing, and you begin to build a life that reflects your soul, not your ego, and it may not look impressive from the outside, but it will feel peaceful on the inside, and that is what matters most. And so these elders, with their weathered hands and knowing smiles, will look you in the eye and say, stop rushing, stop pretending, stop waiting for someone else to validate your worth. Look within, because everything you've ever needed is already there, and the sooner you realize that, the sooner you stop chasing things that don't matter and you begin to cultivate the things that do. Patience, purpose, stillness, truth, love, forgiveness, and presence, and that is where your power lives. Not in the next thing but in the now, and you may not believe it at first, you may resist because the world taught you that more is better, that busy is good, that soft is weak, but when you listen to someone who has lived through generations of both joy and loss, you begin to understand that the opposite is true. More is often distraction, busy is often escape, and softness is the bravest thing you'll ever be. And when you live from that truth, when you stop pretending and start becoming, you begin to feel lighter, freer, more whole, and slowly, you become the kind of person who doesn't just exist but who deeply lives, who walks into a room and brings peace, who listens more than they speak, who gives without expectation, and who, by the end of their life, is remembered not for their possessions or accomplishments, but for the way they made people feel, seen, heard, loved, safe. And that is the legacy worth living for. And perhaps the most unexpected lesson they'll teach you is that silence isn't something to run from, but something to honor, because in silence you finally hear your own thoughts, you finally feel your own soul, and older people understand this better than anyone, because they've spent countless hours in silence. After the children have grown and gone, after the noise of careers has faded, after the friends they used to laugh with are no longer around, and in that quiet they found themselves, not through noise but through presence, and they will tell you that silence is sacred, that the most important conversations often happen without words, that the eyes of someone who truly listens will say more than 1,000 clever sentences ever could, and so they'll teach you to sit still, to breathe deeply, to find peace not in distraction but in attention, and they'll remind you that relationships don't last because of grand gestures, but because of small daily kindnesses, the extra cup of tea made without being asked, the hand reached for in the dark, the patience to listen without fixing, the decision to stay when it would have been easier to leave, and these seemingly tiny things are what shape the life you look back on with pride or with regret. And the elders, having lived long enough to see the full circle of life, will tell you that the things we think are permanent often vanish, And the things we think are fleeting often stay in our hearts forever, so don't be so quick to rush past the ordinary days, because those are the ones you'll miss most. And don't wait to say, "I'm proud of you," or "I love you," or "I'm sorry," because time is not guaranteed, and what you leave unsaid may become your heaviest memory. And if you're lucky enough to be told these things before it's too late, you'll realize that life isn't measured in years, but in presence, in how deeply you loved, how openly you gave, how honestly you lived. And you'll understand that happiness isn't something you find at the end of the journey, it's something you choose in the middle of the mess. And choosing joy even when things are hard is a rebellious act of grace. And you'll learn that laughter matters, that it heals, that you should never outgrow the ability to laugh until your sides ache, even if life has been unkind, because laughter is proof that your spirit hasn't been broken. And those who've lived through war and loss and loneliness will tell you, keep laughing, keep finding joy in the smallest things, in your morning coffee, in a good song, in the way the light hits the window, in the way your dog looks at you like you're the entire world. And when you start noticing these things, your life begins to bloom in places you didn't expect. And you'll learn that you don't need to wait for a perfect moment to be grateful. You don't need everything to make sense before you feel peace. Peace comes when you make room for it, when you let go of trying to fix everything and instead start trusting that even the broken pieces can make a beautiful mosaic. And they will show you that some of the most profound love you'll ever feel won't be romantic. It'll be the love of a lifelong friend, the love of a child looking up to you, the love of someone who sits with you in silence and asks nothing of you but your presence. And you'll realize that home is not a place but a feeling, and sometimes that feeling comes from a memory or a voice or even your own heart once you've made peace with it. And maybe one day, when your hair has turned silver and your hands have wrinkled like soft paper, someone younger will sit beside you and ask you what life has taught you. And in that moment, you'll realize that everything you've been through, every heartbreak, every mistake, every triumph, every quiet evening where you wondered if it was all worth it, has prepared you to pass on the light. And you'll speak not from a place of perfection, but from the kind of wisdom that only comes from living fully and loving deeply. And you'll say, be kind, be present, forgive often, laugh loudly, love with your whole heart, and don't wait. Don't wait for permission to be yourself. Don't wait for everything to be perfect. Don't wait to start living the life that feels true to you, because time will not slow down for your fears, and joy will not wait forever for your permission. So live now, love now, speak now, create now, forgive now, because now is all we ever have. And when you carry these truths in your heart, not just as ideas but as actions, your life begins to change, not all at once but in small, beautiful ways. Your relationships grow deeper, your nights become calmer, your choices become more honest, and your soul feels more at home. And that is the kind of change that lasts, the kind that frees you, the kind that makes you whole. And when that happens, when you begin to live from this place of wisdom, you will never be the same, not because life got easier, but because you got wiser and braver and softer and stronger. And that, above all, is what those who've walked ahead of us want to pass down, not just lessons but love, not just advice but light. And now it's your turn to live it, to share it, to embody it, and in doing so to honor them and to become, slowly and beautifully, the kind of person who changes the world not with noise, but with presence, not with power, but with love.